Hi, I'm Ginny Robertson, founder of the On Purpose Woman Global Community and the founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine. I'm here with Karen Tasto to talk about her article in the November-December issue of On Purpose Woman magazine. Karen, before we have that conversation, tell our viewers about you.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you who I help. I help women who have been holding it all together, holding up the world, trying to do things right, and perhaps caretaking and just losing a sense through it all of who they are, of what's important to them, what they value, what they desire, and I help them reclaim and connect to themselves. It's like them coming home to themselves, connecting to all the parts of themselves, even the dark side, the dark, what we consider the dark, and the light. We as women tend to struggle with both of those ends
Mhm.
of the spectrum. So yeah, and I'm a certified life coach. I do that work through one-on-one life coaching and also women's circles, which is what our article is about today.
Your article is about receiving from sisterhood, and we're going to talk more about how you do this work and why it matters, why it's so important. Also, Karen's website is in the text of the video, karentasto.com. So check out her work, especially if you want to desire a more deeper connection with some other women. So, Karen, you've shared a number of articles over the years in On Purpose One magazine. Often they just come out of an email that you send, like an email blast, kind of like a blog in a way, but it's all in the email, and I'll be touched by something and I'll email you and say, "Can I use this in the magazine?" That's what happened with this one. You shared this writing about how you receive from sisterhood. And as you probably know, sisterhood is really important to me and it informs the work that I do. But let's start with you defining, what does sisterhood mean for you?
Great question. Sisterhood is it's I have many sisterhoods and they all serve a different purpose.
Mm,
And they're my soul sisters. I call them my soul sisters because they're women that I have earned their trust and I trust them. We
mm,
have developed these connections and bonds over time where we know that we are held, that we will see each other and listen to each other in ways that we don't typically have receive in our maybe our other friendships or other circles that or groups that we might be involved in. So there's a real sacredness I feel in my sisterhoods. We're
mhm.
there for each other in the good times and the hardships. We know each other's stories, those stories that have made us who we are, that have come been told from our deepest hearts.
Mm.
Sisterhood is, yeah, it's tended to. It's not taken for granted. So we know that we have to do our part. We have to show up. We need to show up for each other, and we want to.
Yeah, that's
And
the
there's
difference right
also
there.
this sense, yeah, yeah. There's this sense that there's no like obligation, I guess, is a big one too.
Mhm.
It's we know we can show up and be who we are, be authentic, and at the same time, we don't have to, over serve or give unless it comes from joy, unless it comes from a real genuine wanting to, a desire to. Yeah. Yeah.
So no expectations other than of ourselves in the process, right? Of just how we plan to be, that we're going to be in that space of either receiving or giving, or maybe both.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
real, a dance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a real dance, a ebb
I
and
love the
flow.
soul sister idea so much. And I have a few women in my life that I consider those. And what I also love, which works so great for me, is we don't have to stay in touch on a consistent basis. because I'm not a phone talker. I'm just not a phone talker.
Mm,
And I know that I could be a month since I've had any connection with this person or one of these women. And if I need them, all I have to do is call or
mm,
text or ask or just something. And they will respond if they're able. And so there's not this, oh gosh, we haven't talked for, are they going to get upset with me or is something wrong because they haven't called me? There's none of that because it's just so honest, I think. Is that your experience as well?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
those are the deeper sisterhoods, but we also have the sisterhoods of women that we surround ourselves with.
Mhm.
And we're going to dig into sisterhood a little bit more, but can you just give me a brief answer about why it matters to have not just the deep soul sisters, because you went into that pretty well, but just these other sisterhoods around us that may be not quite who we're going to be with our soul sisters.
Yeah, to have these, it's so important. It so matters. As you know, I explain in this article, it matters because when we have that in place, it's like we have something to lean on to anchor us and lean into. And I often, I have to tell, my sisterhoods, and they remind me, that especially when we feel we are a mess and our life is falling apart, when there's chaos, that's especially when we need our sisterhood and we need to reach out. But it's hard from all the programming and conditioning that and the limiting beliefs that we hold onto that we have developed as women. It's really difficult for us to reach out in those times, and that's where it feels like it's a learning, it's a muscle, it's an undoing as well, from those
Mm,
old programs,
yeah,
that
doing and unlearning. Yeah.
especially when things are hard, you know.
Mhm. We didn't have role models for that. At least I didn't.
No,
My
no,
mom had
instead
yeah, go ahead.
we isolate instead. That's
Hmm.
our tendency, in this culture, to
Yeah.
isolate ourselves. And oh, once I get myself together and get things in place, then I can, go back into that circle, into that sisterhood.
Nobody wants to deal with this hot
Yeah,
mess,
and so
right? Yeah.
yeah, and so holding ourselves when we've fallen back into that pattern, hold ourselves, with compassion. It's certainly not a
Mhm.
judgment at all,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And what's most interesting about that, I think, is that we would do that for another person. We would
Yeah.
not see that as an imposition if they're part of our sisterhood, but yet we still hesitate to like burden them or ask for something. And that is conditioning because I think about my mom. She had a circle of friends. They played bridge, they went shopping together, and she had two women I can think of right now that were deep friends. But even then, there were things that I know she would have never shared with them, things that she considered her shortcomings, things that she considered that she didn't, that she harbored and things like that, because there was not that trust. And I don't think women were conditioned to to lean into that, to not at least show their perfection.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never let them see a sweat. Remember that commercial? I think it was for hairspray, but it was no. Um, So you experienced a loss this year, and from what you wrote, it sounds like you handled it in maybe a different way than you would have
Mm.
because of sisterhood. Can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I lost my mom this summer after a long she had Alzheimer's, and then cancer is what took her at the end. Um and it was the couple years leading up to it, that were especially challenging. Just, my mom constantly, her needs constantly changing, as anyone who's a caregiver knows. And also the siblings, in a lot of disagreement and tension. And so it challenged me, it tested me in ways that I have never been challenged. Well, I have actually, but it had been a while. And So it really challenged me. It's like this is what I preach, this is what I talk about is leaning into sisterhood and I would catch myself, there I certainly, I'm human and so there were still those moments where oh, I can't one of my groups is on a WhatsApp, in between our meetings, and I can't tell them something else, I'm gonna, like you said, burden them. So and yet I did reach out, and I was always so grateful when I did because they were more than, happy to support me. And so, and then it was also learning how to completely collapse into them,
Mm,
uh, and let them hold me in ways. I had been doing it, for others for so long. And to be the reciprocant of that was really something. And so it just really even inspired me even more of the value of having your sisters, your sisterhood, your circles, your soul sisters, because we need them. Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't want to wait till you need them to create them.
exactly, exactly. Yes. So create them, become a part of one now. While in whatever stage you're in your life, whatever is going on, and know that it's going to be there for you when you most need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also mentioned at the beginning that you create sacred circles for women.
Mm.
So, what is a sacred circle and how is it different from a sisterhood, or is it?
Well, yeah, so that is where the sisterhoods arise from, is within the circle work. I've been a participant of one from 10 years back of a couple, and then and and then soon after was creating my own. So what makes a circle sacred is there's a spiritual center, universal, whatever your beliefs are, all are welcome in that space. And so you have that as what's holding the circle as a whole, and you know that you can even allow that center to hold the circle, and to trust that holding, and also to be holding the power of the women as a whole that are there and individually. And what also makes it sacred is the level of vulnerability and trust that are cultivated. I facilitate in the way that each woman present feels heard, feels seen, gets equal time to share, um, and develops their listening skills for the other. So, and it really, of course, that can't help but ripple out into our other relationships in the
Yeah.
world. Yeah, that's what
So,
makes it
would a
sacred.
woman need to already trust? Because, trust between women has been an issue for millennia.
Yeah.
And I know it was one of the big things that I experienced, especially in my corporate career, because we weren't in positions to really bond in that way or to connect in that way. There was always a competition for something, or just so it was a lot of superficial, like getting along, I felt. And I also look back to, growing up, I didn't play on sports teams with girls. They didn't have any. And I think, women who did, they learned to trust maybe in that process, to trust their teammates, also to lose to another woman and be okay with it. Men can do that. They can lose a golf game and go out and have a beer. In that stage of my life, in the I guess that was the 80s, 70s and 80s, that wasn't happening very much. And so I still know a lot of women who have initial trust issues with other women. does a woman need to be like all full of trust before she shows up, or does she just have to trust that she'll be okay when she does, right? That she just has to trust that something is there for her to even show up. I don't know if I'm asking the question right, but do you get what I
That is
mean?
a great question. I'm so glad you brought up this topic of trust. They do not need to already have that developed. In fact, I wouldn't even expect it given our culture and, the way that we have been conditioned
Yeah.
and raised. You know, that's one of the first topics, themes that I bring to when a circle is starting, when a new circle is forming and we're building a foundation, is the topic of how do we relate with women? How have we related with women? How have we been wounded? We call it the sister wound.
Mm,
All the Yeah, because it's such a commonality, a betrayal by a woman, competing with a woman, jealousy. These are all normal human
yeah.
feelings. So we put it out in the forefront. We name it, and and then with the guidelines, that have shared agreements, that what the confidentiality, what we're not gonna there's no talking behind another sister, which is, we all have experienced or partaked in. So really mindful of that. It's really bringing a new level of self-awareness. And I always say, and to turn it back on yourself, if you're the jealousy or the feeling competitive, so normal, so understandable. But what is that saying when you notice yourself, when you're aware of that, of another woman sitting across from you or beside you? What is that saying in you? What is that stirring in you that maybe is missing in your life?
Mm,
And or something that, has been in shadow and just needs some tenderness and some light shown upon it. So you just never know. And the trust is not something that's gonna, automatically appear and develop. It's just over time. It's over time.
so beautiful. What about, you said this is not, we don't do this or this or this. And I'm thinking, groups like that, or what we think are groups like that, can sometimes turn into therapy sessions or advice giving.
Mhm.
How are circles different? Because I don't think that's what goes on there, right?
Yeah, we're not a therapy group, and
Mhm.
I even leave my coaching hat off in circles. So I come there, on level playing field. I'm holding the container, the space. I'm holding the time, the logistics. I'm um, tuning into the group and what the needs might be, and shifting as we need to. Um, but it's the group is just the circle is just different than that. We are listening with our heart, we're talking from our heart, we're having equal time to share. uh, we set up right away that there's no coaching, no therapeuticing, no
Yeah.
advice giving. Yeah, so and not even sharing, like, oh, you know how we like will share something really painful for ourselves, like, I'm talking like one on one or in a, with some girlfriends out, and we'll share something really painful, and then, and this is totally human too, they'll say something, oh, that reminds me of such and such, but you're still in your story, you're still feeling that, and like, I know me, like, I just wanna be like, "Do you hear me? Did you hear me?"
It's the
You want that.
discounting of someone. It really is. It feels like that.
Yeah, exactly, it feels discounting,
Yeah.
yeah. So we try to, not do that.
Yeah.
In this world. Of
Yeah.
course, it can happen,
Sure.
of course, but yeah, we set the intention that we're not going
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Ah,
And it's always amazing, when you allow a woman that space and time that they probably aren't getting elsewhere. When you're really holding it and they're speaking, and even especially in the silence, the pauses,
mm,
allowing those, because that is often, and I've witnessed it, an aha comes. Oh, I know what I need to do next. It comes from them. And so that's the kind of space that, we're holding, is for each woman to find their own truths, their own answers, their own wisdom. And then that trust in themselves develops
mhm.
in such deep ways.
When I was learning to facilitate for the company I worked for after my corporate job and before I started the On Purpose Woman stuff, one of the things that they really talked about was being comfortable with silence in the room and not rushing to fill it. And because it is uncomfortable. I mean, I see it when I do workshops and I just want to, let's just sit and be, or I'll set it up ahead of time. If somebody starts to get emotional, please do not offer them anything. Don't offer them a tissue or try to console them. Don't, because that's for you, not for them. But it's that human thing that says we're supposed to be fixing this somehow, right?
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
think being in circle gives you great opportunity to just be with yourself and the other women, but not in a way that you have to do anything, which is what we're so queued up to do, right?
Yeah, don't like you said, throw the tissue at them. And you're such a fabulous, amazing space holder yourself. So
Well,
yeah,
thank you.
so
Thank
honored
you.
that. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
challenging, as you know, because our stuff comes up too in the while we're holding space, and
Oh yeah, yeah. And that
yeah,
that speaks to doing our own inner work.
it does. It does.
Yeah.
The trainer that would come in once a month for a year and train us in these processes, he would say, your buttons are going to get pushed, and that was his job, to try to see what our buttons were and to start to push them so we wouldn't erupt to the front of the room of clients, right? And he said, stuff's going to come up, and this can't be about you, but you better bracket it, put it over here, and you better pick it up when you leave and look at it, because it's going to keep coming up, as we all know, over and over again. So that's another beautiful thing, I think, about being in circle, because our buttons just might get pushed. We might just have an awareness of something, and we get to just sit and be with that,
Yeah.
or talk about it if we want to, right? I guess that's the other, if we want to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If we want to.
Well, to our viewers, thank you, Karen. And I'm going to ask you one more question, well, two more questions before we wrap up. But to our viewers, Karen shares a lot more in her article. And to read the current issue, you can click on the On Purpose One magazine link in the text of this video. And to read other articles that Karen has written, she's written a number of them over the years. You can click on our archives on the magazine page. But Karen, how might our viewers find out more about your work? And now we have your website. Do you want to say any more about that, or you have anything special you're coming up with, or?
Yeah, just go to check out my website, and yeah, I invite you. I would love to, if this spoke to you, if feel like you want to learn more, you're welcome to schedule a call with me. I'd be happy to have a chat with you. And it might be, I'm putting a book out next year about how women can create their own circles.
Mm,
And so gather their own tribe together, and the book will talk you through it. In the meantime, though, and I just got this flash while I was dancing this morning. We can talk on the call about, if you're called to do so, I can help you through the process of starting your own women's circles, your own sacred circle.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're a fan, as I am, of the book The Millionth Circle
Yes.
by Jean Shinoda Bolen.
Yes.
Shinoda Bolen, I think I say her name, and you do a quote from her in your article. Do you remember the quote?
Yeah, in
Okay,
fact.
good, because I
Yeah.
might mess it
Well,
up. No, go,
it's not the whole thing, but she
right,
talks
right.
about how patriarchy will shift out of patriarchy into a more balanced whole of the feminine, revering the feminine and the masculine,
Mhm.
when a critical number, a million, in fact, circles are formed.
Mm. I love that. I wonder how many we're at right now.
I don't know.
Be a little hard to
But they are
probably
certainly growing. Yeah, they're
yes, they are.
growing all over the world.
Well, we're gonna leave us with a final thought. It could be something that you've already said, but just something you think is really important to leave us with today.
What I want you to leave with is a knowing that you don't have to go it alone.
Mm,
In fact, yeah, you don't have to go it alone.
you don't have to go it alone.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
thank you for that.
yeah.
And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your heart and the deep love that you have for sisterhood with us today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And whoever's watching this, either live on the On Purpose Women Global Community Facebook group or on our YouTube channel, thank you for watching. For more information on the community and magazine, please click on the links to this video, which are from my website, opwgc.com. Thanks again for watching.